Mom, I think it's too noisy, let Dad take care of it. Xia Wanyu emphasized the word dad intentionally. Don't. Sister, you're wrong. Xia Wanyu quickly adjusted her attitude. This little girl is very clumsy, let Dad take care of her, it's more suitable than Mom. Xia Wanyu said with a sad expression. Don't be like that, sister, my butterfly hairpin seems to be broken, can you help me get it fixed? Xia Wanyu quickly lied to distract the attention. Hearing that, Xia Wanyu immediately turned around. Xia Wanyu asked Xia Wanyu to get the jewelry box, slowly flipping through it while asking, Sister, did you really return to the capital? Xia Wanyu calculated roughly, then answered vaguely, yes. Then what did you help Dad do just now? Xia Wanyu couldn't hide her annoyance. If she didn't return to the mansion, then why would she return to the capital? That's why I said that. Xia Wanyu replied calmly, not paying any attention. Xia Wanyu suddenly felt like she was being teased, a fire of anger rose in her heart, and was about to get angry when she heard Xia Wanyu laugh and say, Little sister, are you too free? Why don't you talk about you? The fire in Xia Wanyu's heart had just died down, but unexpectedly, Xia Wanyu fueled the fire. Unfortunately, your leg is injured, just rest. Xia Wanyu heard that, and almost couldn't help but rush over and bite Xia Wanyu. At first, she had martial arts skills, the last time she fell and injured herself, she had intentionally acted out the act, and even dragged Qing Qing along as a foil, but in reality, she wasn't injured at all. Her leg was completely dislocated by Xia Wanyu. Fortunately, Xia Wanyu didn't use too much force, only dislocating it a little. After the doctor adjusted and carefully healed her wound, she would recover after 2 weeks of rest, but she didn't dare to reveal that she had martial arts, afraid that others would suspect her, so she had to lie still and endure it. Originally, she wanted to take this opportunity to play around a bit, but unexpectedly, Xia Wanyu tortured her to the point where she didn't dare to fight back. Oh my, little sister, after you're completely healed, you can go take a bath in the stream, wouldn't that be so much fun? Xia Wanyu continued to tease Xia Wanyu. Hearing this, Xia Wanyu frowned slightly. Taking a bath in the stream? It was definitely a good thing, and it was specially prepared by Chu Mu Xian for Xia Wanyu. At this moment, Xia Wanyu really couldn't do anything else, she could only silently pray that Chu Mu Xian would personally deal with Xia Wanyu. Can't you stay here and play with me? I'm so bored by myself. Xia Wanyu probed. If Xia Wanyu were to admit that she was afraid of being alone at this moment, Xia Wanyu would immediately pretend to be a sisterly figure, saying that she was willing to stay with her even if she became crippled. Unexpectedly, Xia Wanyu was not so easily led by the nose, and said, No, I'm busy with all sorts of things, how can I have free time to be sad? Sigh, it's really sad. Xia Wanyu had no choice but to change her tactics, trying to coax Xia Wanyu to take the initiative to ask her out. Xia Wanyu saw her intention, and immediately changed the subject. I found your butterfly hairpin, but the pearl on the butterfly wing seems a bit loose, can you take it to me to fix it? That butterfly hairpin was the only thing left after Xia Wanyu was kidnapped. The butterfly wings were encrusted with many precious gems, and were originally sparkling and lifelike. Xia Wanyu treasured it very much, and often carried it with her. Now, although the gems have been worn away, and the colors are no longer as brilliant as before, they are not loose at all. Xia Wanyu said that just to get the hairpin back, to avoid an impostor using her sister's things. After chatting for a while, Xia Wanyu used the excuse of not wanting to disturb Xia Wanyu's rest, and pulled her mother away from Lanfeng Pavilion. Her mother returned to Qihiyuan, while Xia Wanyu returned to her own place, Fuyun Pavilion. She hid the butterfly hairpin carefully, waiting until she met the real Xia Wanyu, before handing it over herself. Then, she searched for a hydrangea in the closet. It was a traditional hydrangea. According to the customs of Qing country, during the Buddha bathing ceremony, the government would hold a banquet in the capital, inviting all unmarried men and women to attend. If the girl had feelings for a boy, she would personally throw the hydrangea to him, which was called hydrangea passing. Of course, if the boy had no feelings for the girl, he could refuse to accept the hydrangea. This was very normal, and the girl who was rejected would not lose face. On the contrary, if a boy likes a girl, he will give her a bow and arrow, a symbol of hunting. If the girl does not like it, she can also refuse frankly. When girls turn 15, after the coming-of-age ceremony, they will start preparing to find a lover, or use the Buddha bathing items to pray for a partner. Shun country does not have a separate Valentine's Day. Most of the girls' marriages are arranged by their parents. Few have the right to choose for themselves. Therefore, those who are free to choose are usually the daughters of powerful families or those who are loved. Xia Wanyu is one of those lucky people. This hydrangea was made by Xia Wanyu after completing the coming-of-age ceremony. The petals are tied together into a round ball. Each petal represents a type of flower, on which are embroidered delicate patterns, filled with cotton seeds. The hydrangea is tied with a silk ribbon, with silk tassels, symbolizing purity. In her previous life, when Xia Wanyu fell into the abyss, she fell in love with Su Muxian. Therefore, during the Buddha bathing ceremony, she threw the hydrangea to Su Muxian. Before the Buddha bathing ceremony, girls would go to the temple to pray for blessings, hoping that Buddha would bless them to meet their ideal partner. Because of that, Xia Wanyu led her to Huayin Temple. From then on she was harmed by Su Muxian and Xia Wanyu. Xia Wanyu gently stroked the tassel on the hydrangea, on which was embroidered the word "do." This time, she removed the tassel. Next to the word "do," she embroidered the word "neem." In this life, she decided to throw this hydrangea to Su Tu Neem. Early in the morning, before arriving at the Buddha bathing ceremony, Qingqing and Jingjing, two maids, urged Xia Wanyu to get up and get ready. "When are you planning to get married?" Xia Wanyu, looking tired, yawned as she looked at the two maids who were excitedly preparing. Of course this servant hopes that the young lady will find her ideal lover. Qingqing said as she held the comb and tried it on, thinking about which hairstyle she should wear. "That's right. Good men are rare, it would be a pity for the young lady to miss them. Just let this servant help you be as beautiful as possible." Jingjing lifted the full jewelry box, enthusiastically encouraging. Hearing this, Xia Wanyu couldn't help but remember her previous life, when she had given the flower ball to Su Muxian. In that memory, Qingqing and Jingjing always prevented her from approaching girls who intended to get close to Su Muxian, with the strong belief that he was the perfect lover. But what was the truth? She had personally invited the wolf into the house. Her previous life was a bitter lesson. After being meticulously made up by Qingqing and Jingjing, Xia Wanyu was finally ready to set off. Chapter 3. The Buddha bathing ceremony was held on Tongfeng Island. On the island, the scenery was extremely charming. The trees were green, pairs of mandarin ducks chirped to each other. Their clear chirping made people's hearts flutter. The road leading to the island was decorated with soft silk ribbons fluttering in the wind. Young men and women dressed in gorgeous costumes, following each other across the bridge, their cheerful voices and laughter permeating the sweet atmosphere. On the other side of the bridge was a large open space. When Tai Yuyandu appeared, the crowd immediately stirred. With a beautiful face and incomparable noble demeanor, a brocade dress embroidered with brilliant patterns like the dawn, she was like a flower shining brightly in the middle of a spring garden. Her beauty made people gasp in amazement. The men stared, while the women, in addition to admiration, could not hide their jealousy and inferiority complex towards her outstanding beauty. It was true that the title of the two greatest sisters in the capital was not just a rumor. Unfortunately, the remaining sister, Xia Wanyu, had her reputation ruined by a bad person. Humph! What a show! Princess Dung Dung, who was originally Xia Wanyu's opponent, spoke sarcastically. In her heart, she secretly wished that Xia Wanyu would suffer the same fate as her sister. What's there to not show off? She has capital. Xia Wanyu did not give in to Rong Dung's sarcasm. Princess Dung Dung was the daughter of Marquis Zhong Shun Yu Fangyi. Both father and daughter were greedy, selfish, and cruel people. In the previous life, when the Xie family was in trouble, Yu Fangyi tried his best to harm them, causing the Xie family to fall into dire straits. Therefore, at this moment, Xia Wanyu did not need to be polite to Dung Dung. Dung Dung was speechless. Looking back at her own appearance in the mirror, she was indeed somewhat self-conscious. Her mother was once a famous beauty, but unfortunately, she inherited her father's small, squinty eyes. Zhong Shunho. Her two round, tiny pupils were like beans, always darting around, looking cunning. Her sharp face lacked vitality, her figure was skinny, and the dress seemed to not be able to highlight any of her beauty. Wan Du, don't pay attention to her, you ugly troublemaker. Ren Chu, the eldest daughter of the duke's family, spoke up to defend her best friend. Ren Chu, you really are a dog poking your nose into a mouse's business. Princess Rong Rong scolded. Mouse? Oh my god, you consider yourself a mouse? If you are a mouse, you should obediently hide in your hole and not go out and disturb others. Ren Chu retorted, her words as sharp as anyone else's. You. Do you want to fight? Rong Rong was so angry that she gritted her teeth. Fight then fight, who's afraid of who? Ren Chu rolled up her sleeves and rushed forward, causing Rong Rong to panic and retreat continuously. As a result, she tripped over her skirt and fell, causing everyone around to laugh out loud. Can't scold, can't hit, just cause embarrassing trouble. Ren Chu raised her fist, not showing any respect, causing Rong Rong to feel humiliated. Rong Rong was both embarrassed and angry. In the end she could only let the maid help her out in a humiliated state. Before leaving, she also threw a hateful look at Xiao Wandu and Ren Chu. After that short scene, the field became bustling again as usual. Looking at Rong Rong's miserable back, Xiao Wandu suddenly remembered something from her previous life. In her previous life, Ren Chu also had a conflict with Rong Rong, but unexpectedly, Rong Rong secretly put drugs in Bui Chin Trin's wine at the party. This caused Bui Chin Trin, the person Ren Chu secretly loved, to be discovered sharing a room with Duong Chi Man, the eldest daughter of the imperial censor, in the forest next to the island. Afterwards, Bui Chin Trin was forced to marry Duong Chi Man, but on the wedding night, he left for the frontier and was never heard from again. As for Ren Chu, in despair, she fled the capital on the night before her wedding to find Bui Chin Trin. However, unfortunately, she was captured by bandits, suffered all kinds of humiliation, and finally lost her life in a foreign land. Ren Chu's tragic end was all caused by Dung Dung. In this life, Ta Yuyandu was determined to change her best friend's fate, not letting Ren Chu fall into the same painful situation as before. Thinking of this, Ta Yuyandu turned to ask, Ren Chu, where is Chin Trin Gij? Near the wild geese forest, Ren Chu replied, her cheeks slightly reddening as she mentioned the person in her heart. Oh, you can't wait to give it to the shooting goose? Have you brought the hydrangea? Xiao Wanyu teased. Ren Chu was a straightforward person, immediately took out the hydrangea from the brocade box to show off to Xiao Wanyu, then begged her to go give the hydrangea together. Don't be in a hurry, it's not certain that we can give it to you today, Xiao Wanyu said with a smile, then her tone became serious, but, remember to follow Jingqing closely today, and also be careful of Rong Rong. Don't let anything unexpected happen. Does she dare to do anything bad? Ren Chu smiled lightly, not paying much attention. In any case, you should be on guard, it's better to be careful, remember what I said. Xiao Wanyu sternly reminded. Alright. You look as serious as a mother teaching her child. Ren Chu laughed, then playfully pinched Xiao Wanyu's cheeks. Xiao Wanyu also didn't give up, immediately tickling Ren Chu's body. The two girls were playing happily, making the atmosphere even more lively. Suddenly, the crowd in the distance cheered loudly. It turned out that Su Muxian had arrived. Su Muxian wore a pure white dress, with an exquisite silver embroidery on the hem, an elegant appearance, and graceful steps. The hem of his dress fluttered in the wind, exuding a noble yet proud temperament, attracting all eyes. Indeed worthy of being the top of the Dishing's handsome men's rankings. Su Muxian not only possessed outstanding looks, but was also talented and well-versed in both literature and martial arts. He was also known by the title King of the Wise, the ideal husband in the eyes of more than half of the young ladies in the capital. How is it? Are you moved? Ren Chu suddenly used his elbow to touch Xiao Wanyu, lowering his voice to tease. The jade is beautiful, but inside is rags. Xiao Wanyu picked up a petal that had fallen to the ground and replied absent-mindedly, her eyes seemed to be enjoying the petals, then she unconsciously muttered, how can it be compared to that person? Who? Renchu was curious and tried to ask. Of course it's the one at the top of the handsome man list. Xiaowanyu answered half-jokingly. Huh? Renchu covered her mouth in surprise. But third prince's appearance is really impeccable, it's just that his body is weak. I just hope he lives a little longer. Xiaowanyu let out a soft sigh, as if thinking of something. Renchu was a little surprised. After all, Su Muxian's reputation in the capital was very good. The two were chatting when they were suddenly interrupted by a familiar voice. Who is it? Turning around, it turned out that Su Muxian had been standing right next to him for a while, a warm smile on his lips. No one, Renchu stammered in panic. He thought to himself, you said someone, and someone came. It's true. Miss Xia, long time no see. Su Muxian bowed towards Xiaowanyu. Then, as if he was doing magic, he pulled out a peach blossom from his sleeve and said gently, this is for you. Ah. Renchu covered his mouth again, looking excited. Giving peach blossoms during this festival was a way to express affection. Indeed, the virtuous king had set his eyes on Xiaowanyu. Renchu leaned over to look at his friend, but found that Xiaowanyu had no reaction at all. She didn't bother to accept the flower, nor did she even look at Su Muxian, just letting him bend down and hold the flower in a frozen position. The atmosphere instantly became awkward. Renchu thought about what his friend had just said, and couldn't help but feel secretly worried. Oh my god, if Xiaowanyu refused outright, embarrassing the virtuous king in front of so many people, wouldn't it be a disaster? Renchu was sweating profusely, nervously staring at Xiaowanyu's mouth, afraid that she would say something bad. Just when the atmosphere became the most tense, the crowd suddenly became noisy, everyone's attention, including Xiaowanyu and Su Muxian, was diverted. Phew, the danger was resolved. Renchu breathed a sigh of relief, then also looked up towards the source of the noise. So, Chu Turan had arrived. He saw that Chu Turan was wearing a long robe embroidered with exquisite auspicious clouds, the sleeves were embroidered with gold thread, and the belt was made of precious jade. Over the robe, he was wearing a cloak of the same color, creating an aura that was both majestic and elegant. His long hair was tied up high, secured with a jade crown, allowing his perfect appearance to be revealed without missing a single bit. Eyebrows like paintings, phoenix eyes sparkling like spring water, making anyone who looks at them feel captivated. He slowly walked over, while covering his mouth and coughing a few times. This action not only did not reduce his beauty, but also made him more vulnerable, evoking a feeling of wanting to protect. As soon as Su Tunim appeared, the entire field immediately resounded with the shrill screams of the girls. They threw peach blossoms at him one by one, hoping to receive attention. But unfortunately, not a single petal could touch Su Tunim, because there were guards blocking them all. It was truly 100 flowers all around, but not a single leaf remained. Miss Ta, hello. Su Tunim walked in front of Ta Yuyandu, took out a peach blossom branch from his shirt, and gently handed it over. Third brother, this branch of flowers is yours, Miss Ta does not need it. Su Mo Xian immediately intervened, reaching out to snatch the branch from Su Tunim. Xia Yuyandu was quicker, taking the branch from Su Tunim's hand before Su Mo Xian could touch it. Thank you very much. Xiaowanyu gently shook the peach blossom branch, then smiled brightly towards Su Xiaoran. Xiaowanyu's bright smile was like sunlight, overshadowing everything around her, even the color of the peach blossoms became pale. Miss Xia, I just gave you a peach blossom branch, why didn't you accept it? Su Muxian asked urgently, his voice carrying a hint of resentment. Isn't it obvious that I accepted the flower? Xiaowanyu glanced at Su Muxian, her eyes as if she was looking at an idiot. Accepting the flower meant accepting goodwill. Rejecting the flower meant rejecting the confession. How could this be? He was so outstanding, how could Xiaowanyu not choose him? As for Su Xiaoran, he was just a sickly person, constantly ill, with no one knowing how long he would live. What did he have that was worth Xiaowanyu's hopes? No way. Today, I must perform well, so that Xia Wanyu realizes that he is the most worthy choice. Thinking of this, Su Muxian began to persuade, Miss Xia, there are quite a few people in the world who covet beauty. Therefore, the husband you choose must be someone who can protect you. If you marry someone who you can't even protect yourself, and who gets sick, I'm afraid disaster will strike at any time. Your Highness, are you cursing the goddess? Xia Wanyu interrupted, her eyes cold. No, that's absolutely not what I mean. It's just that Su Muxian was considering how to explain when the sound of drums suddenly rang out. It turned out that the swallow shooting competition had begun. Xia Wanyu didn't bother paying attention to Su Muxian anymore, immediately turning around and walking towards the Yanhuang forest. Su Turan also slowly followed behind, walking side by side with Xia Wanyu. One person wore a white robe, the other wore a red dress, standing next to each other, looking like a brilliant pink cloud in the evening sky. That scene made people feel overwhelmed and extremely harmonious, as if the two people were born to walk side by side. Could it be that the pink cloud didn't belong in the sky? Su Muxian looked at the backs of the two people, his heart aching so much that he couldn't speak. He quickly followed, squeezed between them, pretending to be weak. Third brother, help me a bit. As soon as the words fell, Xia Wanyu and Chu Shuran seemed to have a connection. Both of them frowned at the same time, then let out a dry laugh, their faces looking as if they had just endured something disgusting. Your Highness, you're really strong, we're used to smelling you, but we still want to vomit. As soon as Xia Wanyu and Chu Shuran finished speaking, both of them immediately moved away from Chu Muxian, creating a distance like avoiding a plague. Their coordination was extremely good. Huh? Didn't you say it was fine last time? Chu Muxian was speechless, so she had to turn around and block Ren Chu's path, asking, does this prince really smell bad? Ren Chu didn't know how to answer. If she defended her best friend, she would offend the prince, and if she said it directly, it would be like putting herself in trouble. She could only answer vaguely, Maybe it's because everyone's perception is different. Oh, Wanyu, wait for me. After saying that, she pretended to chase Xia Wanyu. Su Muxian was about to run after her, when Zhao Rongrui walked over and bowed slightly to greet her. Princess Rongrui, did you smell anything just now? Su Muxian asked a little worriedly. Zhao Rongrui did not answer right away, but turned to lift her sleeve, and tried to take a deep breath. After a long while, she tried to probe, the smell of peach blossoms? Or is it a light smell? No, it's on me, is there anything strange? Su Muxian asked a little embarrassedly. Zhao Rongrui thought for a moment, then suddenly blushed. The prince told her to smell? Was this hinting at something? Never mind, she immediately walked closer, lowered her head and took a deep breath on Su Muxian's body, then closed her eyes, feeling it for a long time. After that, she shyly said with a shy expression, the prince used the dragon incense, right? Truly fragrant, the scent lingers forever. Is it unpleasant? Su Muxian carefully confirmed. No. Zhao Rongrui shook her head repeatedly, her eyes shining, the goddess will never get tired of smelling it for her entire life. Then, she took out a peach blossom branch from her body and offered it to you with both hands. Your Highness, this is for you. However, after waiting for a long time, Su Muxian did not receive it. She raised her head to look, only to discover that he had already run off to chase Xia Wanyu. Along the way, Su Muxian asked all the girls who had expressed their feelings to her. None of them said that he smelled unpleasant, on the contrary, each of them did not spare words of praise. Finally, he regained some confidence. When he arrived, Xia Wanyu and Su Turan were already standing in the wild goose forest, where the goose shooting competition had begun. Su Turan was trying hard to pull the bowstring, aiming at a goose. Although sweat was already soaking his forehead, his breathing was still very steady. After all, he was a prince, and had been strictly trained according to royal rules since he was young. Furthermore, the swallow flew quite slowly, and the position was very favorable, and there was no one fighting for it, so he was very sure that this arrow would hit the target. But at that moment, Su Muxian rushed in front of Su Shuran, pretending to be unsteady, then staggered and collided with him. Su Shuran's body tilted, the arrow deviated, and the swallow was startled and flapped its wings to fly away. But right after that, another arrow flew over, hitting the swallow. It turned out to be Bui Chin Tren's, the person Ren Chu secretly admired. Ren Chu was so happy that he jumped up and down, but Xia Wanyu gently reminded him, "Be careful, don't let people think you're about to marry him." Humph. What's there to be afraid of? Can't a girl marry the person she likes? Ren Chu replied forcefully. If Xia Wanyu hadn't stopped her, she would have rushed over to Bui Chin Tren's place to snatch the swallow back. Ren Chu kept staring at Bui Chin Tren, as if she was afraid he would disappear. Bui Chin Tren was also happily carrying the swallow to his side, but halfway there, he was stopped by a girl. That girl was Li Dao, Bui Chin Tren's cousin. Li Dao's father was just a small official, and recently her whole family had been staying at Bui Chin Tren's house, clearly wanting to find a prestigious husband. The Bui family was a real duke's lineage, and Bui Chin Tren was both talented and handsome. How could Li Dao let him go? Bui Chin Tren was still holding the swallow in both hands, it was still struggling and flapping its wings, trying to avoid Li Dao but couldn't escape. Useless. Ren Chu cursed softly, intending to rush forward to rescue Bui Chin Tren, but was pulled back by Tai Yuyandu. "If you can't even bring back a swallow, how can you protect us?" Tai Yuyandu's words immediately extinguished Ren Chu's intention. She could only stand from afar, craning her neck to stare at Bui Chin Tren with worry. At the same time, Miss Duong Chi Man, the first wife's daughter of the imperial censor, also walked over. Not knowing what she said, she immediately jumped in to argue with Li Dao. Bui Chin Tren finally escaped the disturbance, tightly holding the swallow in his arms, happily walking over to put it in Ren Chu's hands. Ren Chu was frowning, now his face was radiant like a child receiving a gift. On the other side, So Tu Nim continued to focus on shooting the swallows, while So Mo Hien was the one who disrupted the party, aiming to hit each of Su Tu Nim's arrows. As a result, all of Su Tu Nim's arrows went off course. Why didn't Chu Muxian shoot the goose himself to give to Xia Wanyu? It was just because just now, when Chu Tu ran and he gave peach blossoms to Xia Wanyu, she only accepted from Chu Tu ran. He was worried that Xia Wanyu would also accept the goose from Chu Tu ran. It was better for neither of them to give it than for Chu Tu ran to have the upper hand. Today, Chu Tu ran was definitely not allowed to give a goose to Xia Wanyu. Unexpectedly, Chu Muxian's plan to sabotage the party succeeded. Chu Tu ran really didn't hit a single goose. When the final drum beat sounded, Chu Muxian was overjoyed. He even deliberately teased Xia Wanyu, "Miss Xia, how could your husband be someone who can't even shoot a single goose?" "Your Highness, then you also couldn't hit a single one?" Xia Wanyu looked at Chu Muxian as if he was an idiot. Cough. This prince just doesn't want to shoot. Chu Muxian raised his face, looking arrogant. Didn't she know that because he intentionally sabotaged the party, Chu Tu ran couldn't shoot? What did that prove? Chu Tu ran was incompetent, what else? Chu Muxian continued, "Today, people just like to give peach blossoms, wild geese, etc., it's really boring. This prince doesn't like to follow the trend. Little brother, if you can't shoot wild geese today, I'm afraid it's a bad omen, be careful not to get married." Chu Tu ran was so angry that he coughed, trying to hold back. Xia Wandu stood by and watched, both amused and annoyed. She secretly thought, those who curse others will be countered. I hope that the prince will meet his ideal partner. As for those who like to curse, they will be lonely all their lives, with no good ending. Your Highness, are you okay? Tai Yuyandu approached and asked worriedly. Brother is really different from ordinary people. Cough, he just doesn't like to follow the trend. But honestly, today I want to give you a gift, but unfortunately it's not a real goose. Chu Tu Nim said as he signaled to Bin. Bin immediately led his horse over, took out a delicately carved rosewood box from his bag, and gave it to Chu Tu Nim. Chu Tu Nim solemnly presented the box to Xia Wandu with both hands. "Miss Xia, this is for you." "Thank you." Xia Wandu received the box without hesitation. Don't know what it is that you accept it so casually? Chu Emocian stood beside him, speaking in dissatisfaction. A gift just made today? Xia Wandu ignored Chu Emocian, gently asking Chu Tunim. Chu Tunim nodded. Xia Wandu started to open the box, but it wasn't easy to open. This is a special mechanism. Chu Tunim explained and guided Xia Wandu on how to open it. So exquisite. Xia Wanyu exclaimed as she opened the box. Inside were two swallows leaning against each other. The two swallows were carved from peach wood, so lifelike that each feather was clearly visible, so exquisite that it was astonishing. I carved them myself. I hope you like them. As soon as Su Tu-ran finished speaking, Renchu could not help but exclaim, "Oh my God! What a rare talent! Your Highness is truly skillful, and also very dedicated. This is truly a unique gift." Renchu hugged the real swallow tightly in her arms, her eyes filled with grievance as she looked at Bui Chin Trin. Bui Chin Trin was so shocked that he was speechless. "Your Highness, you make us not know how to please women." Xia Wanyu was also surprised by Su Tu-ran's talent. She had interacted with many men, but had never met anyone as skillful and delicate as Su Tu-ran. "Miss Xia, do you like it?" Su Tu-ran asked carefully. "I like it very much. Thank you, Aran. From now on, call me Adu." Xia Wandu did not hesitate to let Su Tu-ran call her intimately in front of everyone, as a way to implicitly acknowledge the relationship between the two. After speaking, Xia Wandu took out her own hydrangea and gave it back to Su Tu-ran. Su Tu-ran was so moved that she hugged the hydrangea tightly, afraid that someone else would snatch it away, especially wary of Su Emocian. Su Emocian clenched his fists, trying to contain his anger. After a while, he managed to say, "This self-determined lifelong relationship doesn't count." Before Su Tu-ran could reply, Xia Wandu spoke up, "Find a matchmaker." "Okay." Su Tu-ran smiled brightly, the corners of her lips curling up to her ears. In her previous life, Adu accepted Su Muxian's swallow, but the result was full of tragedy. After marrying Su Muxian, she was crowned the princess. Everyone thought that she would be completely happy. But unexpectedly, the Xie family was eventually exterminated. When Su Tunim returned, he did not have time to see her one last time. In this life, fortunately, everything had changed. Now, Adu no longer chose Su Muxian but chose him. In this life, he would definitely protect Adu's complete happiness. Su Tunim felt his heart filled with joy, as if it was filled with light. As for Su Emohian, he was both angry and helpless, feeling as if his most precious treasure had been taken away by someone else. The unwillingness, loss, and anger were unbearable for him. In a flash, as if possessed by a demon, Su Muxian rushed forward to snatch the carved swallow. Fortunately, Xia Wanyu discovered it in time and dodged. "Your Highness, snatching is not a gentleman's action." Xia Wanyu hugged the carved swallow tightly to her chest. "Ah, just kidding." Su Muxian put on a magnanimous expression, but secretly swore in his heart, "If I can't snatch it, I will definitely snatch it at all costs." The atmosphere became tense. Bui Chin Trin saw that the situation was not good, so he quickly spoke up to mediate. "All right, the other side is about to start releasing floating eggs, let's go over there." Floating eggs is a form of playing Chu Lu Fuyan. The egg here is a chicken egg boiled with chopped qilin, released into the water to float naturally. Whoever is near the egg can scoop it up. According to legend, eating chicken eggs boiled with chopped qilin can dispel illness and pain. Xia Wanyu came to the stream and sat between Su Shoran and Renshu. Beside Renshu was Bui Jingqing. Su Muxian originally wanted to squeeze in between Xia Wanyu and Su Shoran to separate the two. But every time he bumped into her, Su Shoran would stagger as if he was about to fall, looking so weak that he was about to collapse. Xia Wanyu quickly supported her, leaving Su Muxian with no room to squeeze in. He had no choice but to change direction and squeeze in between Xia Wanyu and Renshu, but he discovered that Xia Wanyu was holding Renshu's hand, so he had no choice but to try to squeeze somewhere else. In the end, Su Muxian had no choice but to sit next to Bui Jingqing, while next to Bui Jingqing was Zhao Rongrua. Zhao Rongrua took the opportunity to intentionally create physical contact with Su Muxian. At first, he intended to use Zhao Rongrua to provoke Xiao Wanyu, but in the end, he discovered that no matter what he and Zhao Rongrua did, Xiao Wanyu would not care. This made Su Muxian feel bored and disappointed, while Zhao Rongrua thought that he had feelings for her, secretly happy in her heart. At this moment, an egg floated in front of Su Muxian. Zhao Rongrua coquettishly said, "Your Highness, can you give this egg to this goddess?" Su Muxian originally wanted to refuse, but when he saw Xiao Wanyu looking over, he immediately changed his mind. "All right." After saying that, he reached out to grab the egg. Xiao Wanyu smiled, gently clapped her hands, causing the water to fluctuate more strongly, and pushed the egg away. "Princess Rongrua, husband, please do not choose someone who can't even catch eggs, or else it will turn into a disaster," Xiao Wanyu said seriously. The previous mockery of Su Tu-ran's weakness by Su Tu-ran was now reversed. He was mocked by Su Tu-ran as a useless person. It was truly a returning courtesy. "Adieu, you shouldn't do this." Su Tu-ran chuckled. Just then, an egg fell in front of Su Tu-ran. He picked it up and gave it to Xiao Wanyu. "Adieu, here, a healthy egg, no illness or disaster. Okay, let's share it." Xiao Wanyu took the egg and carefully divided it in half, giving half to Su Tu-ran and keeping the other half for herself. "Wow! How romantic!" Ren Chu exclaimed, turning to Bui Chin Trin. "In the future, we must also share an egg like this." Su Mo Xian could only stand there, anger rising from every pore. Unfortunately, Zhao Rongrua did not know how to save face, and also picked up an egg that had fallen, trying to imitate Xiao Wanyu by splitting it in half. But unfortunately, she squeezed it so hard that the egg broke. The eggshell and egg white splattered all over Su Muxian's clothes, and even got on the patterns on his clothes. "Your Highness, I'm sorry." Zhao Rongrua quickly took out a handkerchief to wipe Su Muxian's clothes. "Don't touch this, prince. You idiot." Su Muxian pushed Zhao Rongrua's hand away, angrily shouting, "Your Highness." Zhao Rongrua bit her lip in resentment, wanting to chase after her, but not daring. She turned around, glaring at Xiao Wanyu and Ren Chu with eyes full of resentment. They were really comets, Xiao Wanyu thought to herself. After finishing the egg, the banquet began to display other dishes such as wine and fruit. Xiao Wanyu focused on observing every detail. When she saw Bui Chin Trin raise her wine glass, she immediately tensed up. But when she turned her head to look, no one had touched that wine glass. The other dishes were also untouched. Could it be that the other party could accurately calculate that Bui Jingqing would not drink alcohol? If all the steps were fine, then where was Bui Jingqing drugged? A strange thought flashed through her mind. The whole time, she kept paying attention to Su Muxian's every move, even paying attention to the details around him. Later, she heard Ren Chu recount that Bui Jingqing had a similar incident before. "Do, let's go to the forest to enjoy the scenery, okay?" Su Tu-ran asked. Xia Wandu thought about Bui Jingqing's matter, and wanted to go check out that area. Therefore, she agreed to let Su Tu-ran lead the way, just to check the situation first. Ren Chu and Bui Jingqing stayed in the open space to fly kites. The open space had no cover, was quite easy to observe, and didn't seem to have anything suspicious. Moreover, Chu Tu-nim seemed very happy to be alone with her, which made Xiao Wandu unable to refuse his wish. Before leaving, Xiao Wandu carefully told Ren Chu to keep an eye on Bui Chin Trin, not to let him do anything shady, then entered the copper forest with Chu Tu-nim. In the copper forest, Xiao Wandu realized that the branches of ancient trees grew intertwined, the tangled branches made the path winding. It was truly an ideal place for couples. Wandu pulled Chu Tu-nim's hand, leading him to a hidden corner to admire the copper flowers. In the copper forest, flowers were blooming brightly, butterflies were flying, it was like a fairyland. Xiao Wandu was stunned by the scene. When she turned her head, she met Chu Tu-nim's eyes. His eyes were clear, sparkling, full of affection. Xiaowandu was suddenly stunned, the image of Traikmi suddenly appeared in her mind. Traikmi's eyes were once as clear, filled with admiration and love for her. But then, that image suddenly disappeared, replaced by a pain that felt like her heart was being squeezed. Such a beautiful scene, such a beautiful season, but Traikmi was no longer in this world. She sobbed, tears falling uncontrollably. Adu, what's wrong? So Tunim was a little panicked, not understanding why Adu suddenly looked so sad and lonely. Anim. It's okay, let me lean on you for a while. Ta Yuyandu grabbed So Tunim's shoulder. There were some things in this world that she couldn't tell Anim, so Tunim didn't know what was wrong with Ta Yuyandu. He couldn't find words to comfort her either, he could only hold her, letting her cry in his arms. In this world, Adu had always been a radiant and strong person, like the red sunset at the end of the horizon, both bright and beautiful. But why did she become so depressed now? Especially when Adu was with Chumu Xian, she always had a bright smile, so charming that it seemed like it could light up everything. Why did she seem to have turned into a different person now? What was it? Could it be that he couldn't bring Adu happiness? Chu Tunim suddenly felt confused. Feeling Chu Tunim's anxiety, Xiaowandu gradually regained her senses. She wiped away her tears, raised her head and asked, Anim, are you afraid? No. Yuyan, What did she want to ask? Chu Tunim finally didn't dare to say the question in his heart. He was afraid that if Xiaowandu answered yes, he wouldn't know what to do. Give up Adu? Let her return to Chumu Hien, the one who always caused her pain? Or let her fall into the arms of another man? No. He couldn't bear to lose Adu again. Aran, it's okay, don't worry. Xiaowanyu gently smoothed out the wrinkles on Su Tu-Ran's forehead, her heart filled with guilt. In this world, she could no longer find happiness. What should she do? Aran, let's never part, okay? Su Tu-Ran originally wanted to ask Aran why she was sad, but the words that came out of her mouth turned into such a sentence. Okay. Xiaowanyu replied without hesitation, her eyes determined, her hand tightly holding Su Tu-Ran's hand. The two of them didn't say anything more, just leaning against each other under the applause, both of them carrying complicated emotions in their hearts. Wanyu. Wanyu. A sudden call rang out, breaking the silence. Xiaowanyu immediately stood up, seeing Renchu running over alone, her face full of panic. Clearly something was wrong. Then. Is there something wrong with young Master Pei? Xiaowanyu hurriedly asked, her face full of worry. No, just picking up kites. At this point, Renchu was a little angry. Wanyu, tell me, is Zhao Rongru hateful? Our kites flew very well, but she deliberately caused trouble, causing our kite strings to get tangled. Forget it, we just needed to collect the kites and untangle them. But no, Zhao Rongru even ordered the guards to use hidden weapons to knock down our kites. As a result, the kites flew into the copper forest. Qing went to pick up the kites, and so they followed him. Hearing this, Xiaowanyu felt even more uneasy. This was definitely a plot by Tang Jimin and Zhao Rongru. The copper forest had paths, but they were very winding and difficult to navigate. Once deep inside, it would be very difficult to escape. Didn't you call more people to follow young Master Pei? Xiaowanyu asked, her voice filled with anxiety. No. Renchu also began to panic, her voice stuttering. Wanyu, what exactly happened? What's the matter? Nothing, it's fine. Xiaowanyu tried to calm herself down, then continued to ask, where are Zhao Rongru and the others now? Their kite also fell into the copper forest, it should be there too. Renchu nodded, her face worried. Then is Tang Jimin with them? Xiaowanyu continued to ask. No. Renchu shook her head, but felt that the situation was not that simple. Tang Jimin had always targeted Bui Chin Trin. Whenever she met young Master Bui, she would cling to him, and even secretly sent gifts, to express her feelings. Maybe this time they were plotting something against young Master Bui. Wanyu, what should we do now? Renchu almost burst into tears. Is young Master Bui with Zhao Rongru's group? Xiaowanyu continued to ask. Yes. Ren Chu recounted the routes of both groups, then stomped her feet. Ah Qing is so stupid. Let's follow them. Xiaowanyu pulled Ren Chu's hand, then turned to Su Tu Ran, her eyes filled with urgency. Ah Ran, can you send someone to secretly support? Su Tu Ran was originally a prince, and had been familiar with plots and strategies since childhood. Hearing them talk, he had guessed something, and immediately ordered Feng Ping, order a few people to stop Zhao Rongru's group. Then, send someone to find young Master Bui, and once they're found, take them to hide. After that, immediately report back to me. Feng Ping received the order and left immediately. Xiaowanyu seemed to have thought of something, and quickly added, wait. If there is anyone injured by young Master Bui's side, then just bring them along, wait until we arrive and then we'll figure it out. She originally wanted to say women, but afraid of provoking Ren Chu, she changed her words to be more gentle. Feng Ping received the order and left very quickly. Xiaowanyu and Ren Chu originally wanted to go find young Master Bui themselves, but Chu Tu Ran immediately stopped her. My people are faster than you guys. If you guys keep running around like this, you'll be like flies without heads. Why don't you wait for news here, then I'll take you to see young Master Bui. That way it will be more effective. Xiaowanyu thought about it, and found that what he said made sense. Chu Tu Ran's secret guard was a special army that the emperor had specially appointed to protect his life. This army had incredible fighting power. Previously, Chu Xiu Ran had led them to break through the siege to save the empress from the enemy camp, and then even assassinated the rebel right in the palace. If we let amateurs like them go looking for her, wouldn't it cause more trouble? Wan Yu, if something really happens, what should we do? Ren Chu leaned on Xie Xiu Ran's shoulder, tears streaming down her face. It's okay. Maybe Zhao Rongru and the others wouldn't dare to do anything. Xie Xiu Ran hugged her best friend tightly, trying to comfort her. The situation was very dangerous. She only hoped that the secret guards could be one step faster than Zhao Rongru and the others. In her heart, she silently prayed. Chu Xiu Ran quietly held her hand, as if to comfort her. The waiting time seemed to last forever. 2 moments later, the people from the secret guards returned with news. Xiaowanyu, Ren Chu, and Su Shiran immediately followed them. They were led to a secluded place. There, Bui Jingqing was leaning against a tree, his legs tied. Beside him was Tang Jimin. Not only was his legs tied, but his mouth was also gagged, unable to speak. Ah Qing, how are you? Ren Chu rushed forward to hug Bui Jingqing, tears continuously falling. Bui Jingqing trembled slightly, looking like he was being burned. Don't touch me. It's so uncomfortable. Bui Jingqing gritted his teeth and said, his voice hoarse. Ah Qing? Ren Chu was stunned, feeling hurt. Xiaowanyu pulled her hand, advising, young Master Bui was poisoned, he needs to detoxify first. What? Ren Chu was startled, then turned around and slapped Tang Jimin hard in the face, scolding loudly, you slut, are you this crazy? Tang Jimin couldn't say anything, only shaking her head repeatedly, making mumbling sounds. Is there an antidote? Xiaowanyu asked the guards. They shook their heads, no. What kind of poison did young Master Bui get? She continued to ask. One person pointed to a nearby kite and said, the poison is soaked into the kite. Just by coming into contact with the skin, you can be poisoned. This medicine is very strong, used specifically to deal with martial artists. The other person explained. While speaking, Bui Jingqing suddenly went crazy, and threw himself into a tree trunk. Ah Qing. Ren Chu panicked and ran over to hug him. But Bui Jingqing had already lost his mind, and didn't recognize Ren Chu, madly biting and tearing her clothes. Xiaowanyu stepped forward, quickly pressing her acupuncture points, causing Bui Jingqing to lose consciousness. But this was only a temporary solution. If the poison wasn't removed in time, it would probably leave serious consequences. Ah Ran, can you tell your men to bring young Master Bui back to the mansion for treatment? Xiaowanyu spoke up. Because of her good relationship with many famous doctors, Chu Tu Ran's mansion always had good doctors available. Chu Tu Ran nodded, immediately ordering the guards to bring Bui Chin Trin back to the mansion as soon as possible. He comforted her, "Don't worry too much. The doctors in our mansion are very good at detoxifying." Since childhood, Chu Tu Ran had faced countless plots and assassinations using poison, so his mansion had a wealth of experience in detoxifying. The doctors in the mansion were all talented people, having dealt with many dangerous poisons. "I want to go too. I want to follow Ran, I can't leave you behind." Ren Chu cried and begged. "Following the guards will only slow them down. Wait here, wait for news from the prince's mansion. Right now, everything is not resolved yet." Xia Wanyu said with a serious face, picked up 2 branches and held the kite up, then placed it near Tang Jimin, letting her rub against it. Tang Jimin struggled, but couldn't avoid the kite. Instead, it made it easier for Xia Wanyu to complete her work. "It's still not enough." Ren Chu took a step forward, tore Tang Jimin's shirt off, used a piece of silk to wrap the kite and stuffed it straight into her shirt, then pulled the shirt tightly. From the initial panic and resistance, Tang Jimin began to change, her body wriggled, her appearance seductive and alluring. Xia Wanyu and Ren Chu both understood that the drug had begun to take effect. "What now? Find a man?" Ren Chu asked. "A man?" Xia Wanyu smiled. "No need for a man, that would further reveal her true face." Tang Jimin didn't need a man? If he was a good man, after something happened, she could marry him off, turning a bad situation into a good marriage. If it was a bad man, Tang Jimin could blame all the blame on that person, turn herself into the victim, and act out a scene of suffering to beg for sympathy and public opinion. Is that so? Ren Chu felt her mind was hazy. Xia Wanyu did not answer Ren Chu's question directly, but ordered the guards to lead Zhao Rongru's group to the scene of the chaos. She waited until the drug had fully taken effect, before ordering Tang Jimin to be untied. Tang Jimin had just been freed when she began tearing her clothes. Without a man present, Tang Jimin's actions only showed her debauchery and shamelessness. No matter how much she was scolded or ridiculed, she could only endure it all by herself. That was why Xia Wanyu did not allow men to appear. "Don't look." Xia Wanyu raised her hand to cover Su Xiuran's eyes. In fact, Su Xiuran had already turned her back and could not see anything, but he felt her jealousy and anger, and couldn't help but feel happy in his heart. Not long after, Tang Jimin had stripped off her clothes, hugging the tree trunk tightly and rubbing it, looking extremely shameful. "Get out of here now!" the guard shouted. Xia Wanyu quickly retreated to her hiding place, leaving only a few people to guard, while she watched Tang Jimin's increasingly despicable actions, even holding tree branches too. At this moment, Zhao Rongru's group arrived in a big crowd. The crowd of both men and women were all dressed up, their laughter and chatter bustling. When they saw the scene before them, they were all stunned by Tang Jimin's brazen behavior. "Ah!" a few girls screamed, hurriedly covering their eyes. Meanwhile, the playboys who were with Zhao Rongru widened their eyes, growing more and more interested. "Oh my, Miss Tang, I didn't expect you to be this hungry." Someone in the crowd joked. "Haha, if it's a good thing, why don't we help her?" Another person sneered. "Maybe she's about to put on a palace drama for everyone to see." Ha ha ha. The group of young masters were discussing and laughing loudly, clearly very excited. Zhao Rongru stood still on the spot, seemingly scared to death by the scene before her, completely having no intention of stopping Tang Jimin. Friendship, which was originally just mutual exploitation, was now even more fragile than bubbles. After this incident, Tang Jimin's reputation, originally the legitimate daughter of a royal censor, became worse than that of the most despicable people. It was all self-inflicted. Those who harm others will eventually be harmed. Facing such a dramatic scene, Xia Wanyu was also a bit helpless, so she pulled Ren Chu and Su Xiuran away. Because Ren Chu was still worried about Bui Qintrin's condition, Xia Wanyu decided to return to the palace with Su Xiuran to check on the situation. When they reached the horses, Chu Tu Ren rode one horse, while Xia Wandu and Ren Chu rode another. The maidservants led Ren Chu's horse, and the group quickly headed towards the palace. At first, they thought everything was going smoothly, but halfway there, they were attacked by assassins. Some of them held sharp weapons, blocking their horses' path, not only attacking people, but also swinging their swords at the horses. Their target seems to be me. Let's protect Miss Ren and leave first. Chu Tu Ran spoke calmly, as if she was already used to dangerous situations like this. But no. It seems like they don't just want to rob. As soon as Xia Wandu finished speaking, an assassin rushed forward, holding a sword and stabbing straight at Chu Tu Ran. Xia Wandu quickly pushed Chu Tu Ran aside, causing the sword to miss, then she turned around and kicked that person. Unexpectedly, this assassin was quite formidable. His movements were extremely agile. He leaned to avoid the attack, and at the same time raised his sword and stabbed straight into Xia Wanyu's chest. Xia Wanyu originally intended to dodge, but two more assassins rushed forward from behind, forming a pincer attack that made it difficult for her to deal with. This time, even if she avoided it, she would still be unable to avoid being injured. At the critical moment, the assassin behind suddenly slipped and fell down, kicked away by the dark guard from behind. With no more obstacles, Xia Wanyu immediately kicked the one in front. Adu, quickly get out of the way. Su Tu Ran shouted in panic. Xia Wanyu hurriedly retreated to shield Su Tu Ran, but discovered that several assassins raised their swords and rushed forward. As a result, they were all knocked down right in front of him. Chu Tu Nim, who still maintained a calm expression, raised his hand to wipe some dust off his clothes and said with a smile, "Actually, even though I'm sick, my martial arts are still not bad." Xia Wanyu was about to stand up when she suddenly realized, a person like Su Shoran, who could even storm into the imperial palace, how could he not be able to protect himself? It's just that he always likes to act weak. Just using a little bit of strength and already panting. That's great, I can rely on you to protect me. Su Shoran said, coughing a few times as if he was not in good health. Su Shoran's martial arts were indeed formidable, but his body was really weak. However, Xia Wanyu didn't know how serious his illness was. Even though she had lived 2 lives, Xia Wanyu realized that she still didn't understand Su Shoran very well, but gradually, she felt a little sympathy for him. Don't be afraid. Even if I have to risk my life, I will protect you. Xia Wanyu finished speaking, her eyes determined. At that moment, Su Tu Ran felt a warm current flowing throughout his body, from his limbs converging to his dantian, then filled with happiness, making him feel like he was about to burst. It turned out that Adu had already recognized him as someone worthy of her protecting with her life. Adu is so good, being recognized by her, it is truly the greatest blessing in this life. Xia Wanyu was willing to protect Su Tu Ran, not only because of the life-saving grace from her previous life, but also because he was Zair's biological father. Because Su Tu Ran had sent a group of secret guards to escort Bui Chin Trin back, the number of guards had decreased significantly, making the current situation even more difficult. Fortunately, Ren Chu knew a little martial arts, and her maid Lu was also good at self-defense, so the two of them joined the battle. Xia Wanyu had once instructed the group of people beside him that if they encountered a battle situation, they should first hide and observe the situation, then find a way to call for help. Everyone listen. Su Xiaoren suddenly ordered, set up a formation, hold them off. As soon as he finished speaking, the secret guards immediately gathered beside him, quickly forming a formation, blocking the attacker's steps. Go quickly. Su Xiaoran urged. Xia Wanyu immediately pulled Ren Chu and the 2 maids to quickly find a way to retreat, but before they could go far, they were blocked by an expert. Although Xia Wanyu, Ren Chu, and Lu joined forces, they were still no match for this person. The strange thing was that the other party had no intention of taking their lives, nor would they let them leave. Their true purpose was still a mystery. While they were doubtful, Lu suddenly shouted loudly, "Steal the eagle? They want the swallow." The swallow was something that Chu Tu Nim always carried with him. The swallow? Or the embroidered ball? Hearing that, Chu Tu-nim immediately hugged the embroidered ball tighter to his chest. It turned out that the target of these people was the token of the agreement from Xia Wandu. No wonder they had just rushed in to search the horse. Fortunately, Chu Tu-nim always kept the ball with him. No matter what, the swallow could not be lost. The embroidered ball, even more so, could not fall into the hands of others. Xia Wandu and Chu Tu-nim looked at each other. Both of them simultaneously thought of a name, Sumu Xian. Xia Wandu looked closely at the man standing in front of her. It was indeed him. No wonder he did not recognize Sumu Xian at first, because in his previous life he always appeared elegant and refined. But now, with his clothes and actions like a robber, it was really hard for people to recognize him. Recognizing Sumu Xian, Xia Wanyu immediately thought of a countermeasure, turning to Su Shoran. Ran, go ahead. Let me stop him. Sumu Xian had no intention of killing Su Shoran, only wanting to take the eagle and the embroidered ball, so he had not killed him yet. This was the best chance to escape. But Su Shoran did not agree, saying sternly, you must not kill him, but capture him alive. I cannot bear him harming Ayu. Hearing his words, Xia Wanyu immediately imagined herself being captured and forced by Sumu Xian, and could not help but shiver with disgust. All right, stay behind. Qing must have gone to call for reinforcements. We will try to hold out a little longer. Xia Wanyu said, then adjusted her attack tactics. She stood at the front line, not only protecting Su Shoran and Ren Chu from danger, but also intentionally exposing herself to Sumu Xian. Sometimes, she even deliberately charged straight into his sword, causing Chu Muxian to be startled and quickly withdraw his attack. Because of this, he was counterattacked many times, looking extremely miserable. Xia Wanyu fought harder and harder, but her strength was gradually depleted. Fortunately, reinforcements arrived in time to support her. Seeing that she could not achieve her goal, Chu Muxian had no choice but to order a retreat. Before leaving, he angrily swung his sword, slashing a nearby rock. I will definitely snatch the embroidered ball and the eagle, and smash it to pieces. Chu Muxian swore through his teeth. Xia Wanyu, wait. On Xia Wanyu's side. The person who came to rescue was none other than her older brother, Xia Xing, who was currently serving in the Yingshuan office. Adu, are you okay? Xia Xing looked at his sister worriedly. Only after confirming that she was not injured did he let out a sigh of relief. Afterwards, he angrily scolded, these bandits are getting more and more arrogant. They dare to attack in broad daylight. I will increase patrols in the future. Big brother, luckily someone arrived in time. Otherwise, it would be really hard to resist. Xia Wanyu was so tired that he was panting. Yeah, the matter at the beach is settled. Don't worry. I'll take you back now. Beach? What's going on? Xia Wanyu was bewildered. It's about the young lady of the Imperial Censorate. Xia Xing stopped while telling the story, changing his tone. The capital hasn't been peaceful recently, you should be more careful. Tang Jimin's matter had already spread out, it was truly bad news that traveled far and wide. A moment later, as if remembering something, Xia Xing asked Xia Wanyu with a serious face, Adu, did you make an engagement on your own? Before Xia Wanyu could reply, from the corner, Su Shoran deliberately walked to a brighter place, and even pretended to cough a few times to attract attention. As soon as he saw Su Shoran, Xia Xing immediately went forward to salute, but his eyes revealed dissatisfaction. When did Adu get tricked by this person? Xia Xing greeted Su Shoran perfunctorily, then pulled Xia Wanyu's hand, intending to take her back to her parents to interrogate her thoroughly. In his heart, he thought, she really is making more and more arbitrary decisions. Even marriage matters must be discussed with her parents. Brother, we can't go back now, we have to stop by the royal palace. Xia Wanyu pulled Xia Xing's hand back. What? Xia Xing jumped up when he heard that, his voice filled with worry and anger. What's going to the royal palace? Adu, you're a daughter, how can you lower yourself like that? It's no different from offering yourself to someone else. Brother, what are you talking about? Xia Wanyu pushed Xia Xing lightly, dissatisfiedly saying, Pei Jingqing was injured. The prince told me to bring him back to the palace for treatment. What? Jingqing was injured? How could that be? Xie Xing originally had a good feeling for Pei Jingqing. Hearing this, he was both worried and curious. Pei Jingqing had excellent martial arts. He only attended a banquet. How could he be injured? I don't know the specifics yet, but we can't delay now. Let's go first, wait and see how Jingqing is doing, and then explain later. Xia Wanyu patiently persuaded Xie Xing. All right, let's go. But on the way, you have to explain clearly. Xie Xing was hot-tempered. As he spoke, he pulled Xia Wanyu onto the carriage. Brother, there's only one carriage. Xia Wanyu helplessly sighed. Moreover, if we've already arrived at the palace, you can just ask the prince to come along. Xie Xing heard this, turned to look at Su Ran, and felt even more uncomfortable. This guy had just seduced his sister, and now he wanted to take her to the royal palace. What exactly did he mean? Su Ran looked at Xie Xing, calmly saying, General Xia, of course you can come along. Thank you, Your Highness. Xia Wanyu patted her brother's hand, and winked to reassure him. Thank you for what? He seduced me, and even happily agreed. Xie Xing muttered in his heart, but he still forced himself to reply with a sentence, Thank you, Your Highness. No need to be polite. After Su Ran finished speaking, he habitually coughed a few times, causing Xie Xing to reveal a look of disgust. What kind of illness is this? How troublesome. Su Ran kept a distance from Xie Xing, and at the same time invited him to ride in the same carriage. Xie Xing originally wanted to refuse, but when he heard Chu Ran mention Bui Jingqing's injury, he immediately agreed and ran after him without hesitation. What a straight man. Xia Wandu cursed in his heart, then pulled Ren Chu onto another carriage. The group continued towards the royal palace. Half an hour later, they arrived. Bui Jingqing had regained consciousness, but the poison in his body had not been completely eliminated, and he needed to continue soaking in the medicinal pond to detoxify. The medicine the royal palace prepared for Bui Jingqing was a bit strong. In order to avoid leaving any after effects, he needed to stay for a few more days to monitor the situation, ensure his safety before he could return. Therefore, after Ren Chu checked Bui Jingqing's condition in the medicinal pond, Xia Wandu immediately said goodbye to Chu Ran. Adieu, you must keep your promise. At the entrance of the royal palace, Chu Tunim escorted her to the carriage, softly instructing her. Okay. Xia Wandu replied without hesitation. Keep your promise? Keep what promise? Do what? Xie Xing asked anxiously. You will know. Chu Tunim smiled mysteriously, then turned and walked into the palace. Adieu, what's the matter? Xie Xing rode after her on horseback, pressing on. Xie Xing continued to press on. Xia Wan was afraid that he would think nonsense, so she told the truth. Ran, please arrange a marriage. What? You want to propose marriage? Xie Xing shouted, do, since when did the prince get involved with you? Huh? Today we'll arrange it, tomorrow we'll propose marriage, and then we'll get married? Or should we just get married while we're at it? Is there still an older brother in this house? Are there still parents? Xie Xing got angrier as he spoke, pulling Xia Wandu straight out, muttering as he dragged her, I have to tell my parents, today will definitely let them teach me a lesson. You're really getting more and more daring, older brother, but Ran is really a very good person. Xia Wandu was helpless, and could only explain weakly. Even though she knew Ran for 2 lifetimes, in reality, regardless of the previous or current life, she had never interacted much with Ran. No wonder her older brother was so worried. She could only let him drag her to her parents. Before he could even open his mouth, his elder brother had already shot through the roof and told the story of Su Ran's decision to commit suicide. After hearing this, his parents' expressions immediately darkened. Duer, although we allow you to choose your own husband, you can't be so arbitrary, right? Yang Tong was worried. Moreover, the prince is still a prince. Currently, the battle for the crown prince position was very fierce in the imperial court. The Xie family had originally maintained a neutral position, and the princes and princes were all trying to draw their family into their alliance. Xie Jing and his wife actually didn't want their daughter to marry into the imperial family. Fighting for power was too cruel and too bloody. That's right, to tell the truth, the prince originally didn't have the qualifications to compete for the crown prince position, but he had quite a bit of wealth. If that was really the case, marrying him wouldn't be a bad marriage. I'm afraid that I didn't have the qualifications to compete for the crown prince position, but I still kept my status as a prince, so what good would it be to follow him? Since ancient times, the people in the royal family have always been good at intrigue and fighting. Chu Tu Rant's mother was a foreigner, with half the blood of a foreign country, so he had no right to inherit the throne. So, what Xing'er said was right, just getting married and already rushing like this, it's really a bit too hasty. Finally, Xie Jing concluded, yes, that's right. Xie Xing repeatedly agreed, and his mother Yang Tong also nodded in confirmation, continuing to analyze the pros and cons, advising Xie Wanyu. But Xie Wanyu did not answer, only staring intently at her mother Yang Tong. Mom, did Wanyu have another nightmare? Xie Wanyu asked with a serious face, her eyes filled with pity as she looked at her mother's bruised arm. Mom. Only then did Xie Xing notice the wound on his mother's body, and after calling out once, she fell silent. Such things were not the first time. His mother always took care of Wanner herself, getting injured had become a daily occurrence. The children all loved their mother, but no one had any other way. Sigh. When will Wanner be able to escape the haunting memories left by the robbers? Apart from your arm, where else are you injured? Xie Wanner continued to ask. What else are you injured, daughter? We're talking about the main topic, don't change the subject. Yang Tong deliberately changed the subject. Mom, other than your arm, where else are you injured? Xie Wanner seriously pulled her mother back, rolling up her sleeves. Sure enough, her arm was covered with bruises. Oh my. Daughter, you and your brother are still young, move away a bit. Yang Tong withdrew his hand, trying to act gentle. It's okay, just a few bruises from light collisions. Mom is old, her skin bruises easily, it doesn't hurt at all. Besides, Wanner didn't do it on purpose, she just needs her mother. It's okay? It doesn't hurt? Wanner, actually the person pretending to be Wanner, not only knows martial arts, but can also use several other spells. These wounds were all secretly caused by her, leaving quite a bit of damage on her mother's body. Mom, have you applied the medicine yet? Xie Wanner tried to control her emotions and asked. Oh, it's okay, it'll be fine in a few days. Yang Tong waved her hand. At this moment, Xie Jing interrupted and hurriedly said, Oh my God. Madam, where's the medicine? Let me go get it for you. After saying that, Xie Jing pulled Yang Tong out of the room. Xie Wanner looked after her, then also turned around and left. Xie Xing stood there, stunned, unable to react. Only when he saw Xie Wanner leave did he mumble to himself, Oh my God, Doer's matter hasn't been resolved yet. No. Must be on guard. Absolutely cannot let the prince really kidnap his sister. That's right. I'll take a leave from the patrol camp right now. When Xie Wanyu returned, she had already arrived at Xie Wanyu's Lanfeng pavilion. As soon as she arrived, she saw Xiaoping rushing out. Wanyu had another nightmare? Xie Wanyu asked, blocking Xiaoping. Miss, only Madam can soothe Mississippi. Please make way. Xiaoping said urgently, trying to get past Xie Wanyu. Xie Wanyu didn't say much, directly kicking Xiaoping to the ground. Xiaoping, you're getting more and more disobedient. You even dare to argue with my words? Xie Wanyu shouted. No, Miss really needs Madam. Xiaoping knelt down, crying as she said, Miss is really unfortunate, being tortured by bandits, and returning home only to be continuously tormented by nightmares. Eldest Miss, you don't understand Miss's suffering. How bold. How dare you make up lies about the master? Ching Ching, slap me. Xie Wandu ordered. Ching Ching immediately pressed Xiaoping down and slapped her repeatedly. Young miss, you can beat me to death, but please call the madam, otherwise the young miss will be tormented by nightmares forever. I beg you. Xiaoping was initially stubborn, but when her face was swollen from the beating, she finally became scared and begged. Continue to beat me until Wan Er wakes up. Xia Wandu coldly ordered. Let's see how long you evil masters and servants can continue to act. After saying that, Xia Wandu walked inside, and sure enough, she saw Xia Wan Er lying on the bed, her eyes tightly shut, her mouth screaming non-stop, her hands and feet flailing. Don't hit. Don't hit. It hurts so much. Mother, save me, mother. Xia Wan Er cried out. A murderous intent rose in Xia Wanyu's heart. She immediately grabbed the stick beside her, swung it whoosh 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 and hit Xia Wanyu straight in the direction of her. Ah! Xia Wanyu screamed in pain, but tried to pretend to be dazed, looking innocently at Xia Wanyu. Sister. Did you have another nightmare just now? Oh, little sister, this time it's not like the previous times. There was a doctor who said it right. What did the doctor say? Xia Wanyu tried to hold back her pain and asked. It's like this. Mother has been taking good care of you, yet you keep fainting, and your nightmares show no signs of abating. Therefore, the doctor suggested the only treatment, using a whip to treat the illness. What treatment? Xia Wanyu's heart felt like it was struck by a thunderclap, sensing something ominous. Xia Wanyu smiled indifferently and slowly said, the doctor said that if after a period of time the illness does not improve, then try to fight poison with poison, fight violence with violence. Every time you have a nightmare, hit you hard, hit you until you wake up, use the pain to control your fear. I tried it just now, and it really works. Therefore, little sister, every time you have a nightmare in the future, I will beat you up. I believe that your illness will be cured soon. Xia Wanyu was so angry that she cursed the Xia Wanyu family's 18 generations of ancestors, but on the surface she still showed a heroic spirit. Since mother has worked hard to take care of you, if this method is really effective, suffering a little bit is nothing. I'm just afraid that my parents won't be able to bear to see this scene. It's fine, I'll sneak attack. Xia Wanyu lowered her voice and said, I'm afraid I can't hide it. Xia Wanyu deliberately threatened. Then let's try it? Xia Wanyu laughed coldly. At that moment, Xiaoping's miserable scream suddenly sounded outside the door. Xia Wanyu shivered involuntarily, and asked worriedly, what's going on outside? Xiaoping just dared to stop me from taking care of you. I told Qing to teach him a lesson. Xia Wanyu paused for a moment, her voice cold. Master's business, a maidservant dares to doubt and obstruct. This time I'll just punish her. If she does it again next time, I'll pull out her tongue. Xia Wanyu shivered. Why did she suddenly feel like Xia Wanyu had turned into a different person, giving off a cold and scary feeling, to the point that when Xia Wanyu personally brought the bowl of soup, Xia Wanyu was so frightened that she quickly refused. No need, let Xiaoping do it. Xia Wanyu looked at Xia Wanyu, half smiling, half not. After a long while she said, all right, if that's what you want, then let Xiaoping do it. Qing, tell Xiaoping to bring the bowl of soup. Yes, miss. Qing replied from outside. The atmosphere in the room seemed to be suffocating. To break the suffocation, Xia Wanyu tried to speak up. Sister, didn't you meet anyone interesting when you went out today? Yes. Xia Wanyu answered absent-mindedly. This made Xia Wanyu's eyes light up, and she asked with interest, who is it? It's the third prince. As soon as Xia Wanyu finished speaking, the smile on Xia Wanyu's face froze, and she blurted out, how could it be the prince? How could it be the prince? Why not? Xia Wanyu asked back. The prince won't live much longer. Xia Wanyu hadn't finished her sentence when Xia Wanyu sternly interrupted her. Little sister, you have to be careful with your words. Cursing the prince is a serious crime. That's not it. We're just sisters chatting. I also hope you're well. Xia Wanyu looked sincere. Xia Wanyu's face was solemn. Your Highness is the one I chose. Don't say such words again in the future, understand? Xia Wanyu don't know how to respond. Fortunately, at this moment, Xiaoping came in carrying a bowl of medicine. Xia Wanyu looked at Xiaoping's face, which was swollen like a pig's head, and her eyebrows furrowed tightly. There's definitely something wrong with this Xia Wanyu. Little sister, take the medicine. Xia Wanyu brought the bowl of medicine in front of Xia Wanyu, but suddenly pulled her hand back, loudly shouting, Xiao Ping, serving the master is getting more and more excessive. The medicine is so hot, and you dare to carry it here? Kneel down now, carry the bowl of medicine with your bare hands, until the medicine cools down. Miss? Xiao Ping turned to Xia Wanner with a pleading look. Xia Wanner was about to speak when Xia Wanner coldly interrupted her. What? Are you going to argue with me directly? Don't dare. Xia Wanner was so scared that she shook her head repeatedly. Never mind, Xiao Ping, just let the medicine cool down. Xiao Ping sobbed as she looked at Xia Wanner, but she could only grit her teeth and endure, put down the tray, and held the bowl of hot medicine with her bare hands. Xia Wanner's mouth corners twitched slightly, then suddenly she asked softly, Younger sister, are you bored? Xia Wanner was puzzled. What was she going to do again? Xia Wanner didn't dare to answer casually. But Xia Wanner didn't seem to need anyone's response, and continued on her own. I like telling stories the most, like the story of two sisters who both loved the same man. Out of jealousy, the younger brother cruelly killed my sister's son, and even tricked me into eating his own son. After that, the elder sister was rescued. Sister, how do you think the elder sister should take revenge on that evil younger sister, to satisfy her anger? Xia Wanner shivered, goosebumps rose all over her body, her stomach churned. She tried to ask, is it torture to death? Chop her into 100 pieces? Throw her into a snake den? Send her to a pack of wolves? Or let a bunch of men torture her to death? That's still not enough to ease her pain. At this moment, Xia Wanner's expression seemed to be immersed in resentment, like a vengeful ghost, causing Xia Wanner's whole body to turn cold. She secretly thought, what kind of shock did Xia Wanner suffer in the end? Xia Wanner tried to stay calm, and continued to ask, or should I cut my younger sister's flesh piece by piece, forcing her to eat it? Or, if my younger sister has children, force her to eat her own children? That's a good idea, younger sister. Xia Wanyu emphasized the two words younger sister in a cruel manner. Xia Wanyu trembled unconsciously, her heart was beating erratically, a feeling of unease rose in her heart, but she couldn't find any loopholes. Think carefully, see what method is best to use in the end, my younger sister. Xia Wanyu emphasized younger sister again, her tone becoming even colder. Xia Wanyu. Why do I suddenly feel a chill down my spine? Late at night, Xia Wanyu lay alone in her room, tears silently falling. She had a nightmare, in which there was only the image of the skeleton of Xia Yaozi, her beloved son, crying for help, Mother, save me. Ever since Xia Yaozi's tragic death, she did not dare to live happily, did not dare to enjoy happiness, only because she was afraid that her pitiful son would blame her for abandoning him to live a comfortable life. Xia Wanyu let her tears flow, unable to stop them. She got up, climbed up the rafters, raised her head to the sky and whispered, Sure, don't be afraid, Mother will always be by your side. Be a good boy, Mother will always be here with you. As soon as she lay down, she suddenly saw a dark shadow passing by from the direction of the general's mansion. The general's mansion was heavily guarded, yet this person could come and go as if there was no one there. What an extraordinary ability. Xia Wanyu immediately used her lightness skill to chase after him. The other person seemed to run towards Lanfeng Pavilion, where Xia Wanyu had also suddenly appeared. Xia Wanyu stood on the roof, pressing her ear to the tiles to listen to the movements inside. When she heard the voice, she gently lifted a piece of tile and looked in through the small gap. It turned out to be Sima Xian. Xia Wanyu sneered, Your Highness, what else do you want? Wouldn't Wanyu rather marry a dying patient than be with you? What's going on here? Sima Xian replied in a cold voice, Don't mention that anymore. The plan on the cliff failed, and everything went wrong afterwards. I'm just wondering why Su Shouran didn't die in the abyss? Xia Wanyu asked back, Your Highness didn't make it to the cliff in time? Sima Xian replied, On the way, I was suddenly attacked by an assassin. It seemed like the other party acted at the last minute. The assassin's martial arts weren't high, but his killing ability was huge, making me spend a lot of effort to escape. Unfortunately, I was still a step too late. Xiaowaner tried to suppress her emotions and asked further, "It's really strange. A sick person like Su Xiaoran fell into the abyss and was still able to set up a net to save people. Isn't that too coincidental? If this was planned in advance, how did Su Xiaoran ruin our plan?" Su Mo Xian narrowed his eyes coldly, staring at Xiaowaner. In this plan, only Xiaowaner was the one who knew all the details. "Your Highness, do you doubt me?" Xiaowaner pretended to laugh, saying mockingly, "What can a sick person like him, who is about to die, do? But I have to admit that things this time are indeed a bit strange." Late at night, Xiaowanyu lay alone in her room, tears silently falling. She had a nightmare, in which there was only the image of the skeleton of Xia Yaozi, her beloved son, crying for help, "Mother, save me." Ever since Xia Yaozi's tragic death, she did not dare to live happily, did not dare to enjoy happiness, only because she was afraid that her pitiful son would blame her for abandoning him to live a comfortable life. Xiaowanyu let her tears flow, unable to stop them. She got up, climbed up the rafters, raised her head to the sky and whispered, "Sure, don't be afraid, Mother will always be by your side. Be a good boy, Mother will always be here with you." As soon as she lay down, she suddenly saw a dark shadow passing by from the direction of the general's mansion. The general's mansion was heavily guarded, yet this person could come and go as if there was no one there. What an extraordinary ability! Xiaowanyu immediately used her lightness skill to chase after him. The other person seemed to run towards Lanfeng Pavilion, where Xiaowanyu had also suddenly appeared. Xiaowanyu stood on the roof, pressing her ear to the tiles to listen to the movements inside. When she heard the voice, she gently lifted a piece of tile and looked in through the small gap. It turned out to be Su Maxian. Xiaowanyu sneered, "Your Highness, what else do you want? Wouldn't Wanyu rather marry a dying patient than be with you? What's going on here?" Su Maxian replied in a cold voice, "Don't mention that anymore. The plan on the cliff failed, and everything went wrong afterwards. I'm just wondering why Su Xiaoran didn't die in the abyss." Xiaowanyu asked back, "Your Highness didn't make it to the cliff in time?" Su Maxian replied, "On the way, I was suddenly attacked by an assassin. It seemed like the other party acted at the last minute. The assassin's martial arts weren't high, but his killing ability was huge, making me spend a lot of effort to escape. Unfortunately, I was still a step too late." Xiaowaner tried to suppress her emotions and asked further, "It's really strange. A sick person like Su Xiaoran fell into the abyss and was still able to set up a net to save people. Isn't that too coincidental? If this was planned in advance, how did Su Xiaoran ruin our plan?" Su Mo Xian narrowed his eyes coldly, staring at Xiaowaner. In this plan, only Xiaowaner was the one who knew all the details. "Your Highness, do you doubt me?" Xiaowaner pretended to laugh, saying mockingly, "What can a sick person like him, who is about to die, do? But I have to admit that things this time are indeed a bit strange." Furthermore, ever since Xiaowanyu returned from the abyss, she had become so unpredictable, making people feel like she was possessed. Not to mention that yesterday, she had told a strange story about two sisters falling in love with the same man. Su Maxian interrupted, "Why talk about such useless things? Just focus on our goal. When the plan is completed, the Xie family can deal with it however they want, but don't waste time on the petty fights of the women in the backyard." Xiaowaner smiled and said, "Useless? But I think the story she told seems quite interesting. For example, cutting up her sister's son, then forcing her sister to eat her son. This idea is not bad at all. Your Highness, what do you think? Should we try turning her son into a sacrificial pawn, to see how she would react?" "Ha ha ha. Crazy." Su Maxian slapped Xiaowaner's face hard, shouting indignantly, "Your Highness, we are allies. Please don't treat me so badly." Xiaowaner covered her face, glaring angrily at Su Maxian. She thought to herself, from Xiaowaner to Su Maxian, one person after another had beaten her. Was she born to be beaten? What alliance? "If you mess up again, I'll kill you immediately," Su Maxian threatened. Furthermore, it was said that the pervert had asked a matchmaker to propose marriage. She had to find a way to ruin this at all costs. In addition, he had also sent a painting of a swallow to Xia Wanyu. Find a way to swap or destroy that painting. Swallow painting? What kind of toy is it? Xia Wanyu looked puzzled. Don't ask too much. Whatever you're told to do it well, understand? Su Maxian shouted angrily. Then, he pushed Xia Wanyu down on the bed, roughly tore her clothes, and forced her to do humiliating acts. When he saw Xia Wanyu's body covered in bruises and scratches, Su Maxian glanced at her with disgust and scolded, "Can't you pretend to be a normal young lady? Why do you have to turn yourself into such a monster? How hateful." He turned her over, looking at her intact face, almost identical to Xia Wanyu. Only then did he feel a little better. While he continued to torture Xia Wanyu, the gentle image of Xia Wanyu and Chu Turan appeared in his mind. His mouth kept cursing, "Bitch! Bitch! Let me torture you to death." Xia Wanyu, instead of feeling humiliated or in pain, appeared to be delighted, excitedly shouting, "Your Highness, you are so strong, so majestic, so wonderful. Ah! 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 What a sick couple." Xia Wanyu stood from afar observing, then returned to her room, lost in thought about her next move. The next day, as expected, Chu Turan brought gifts and a matchmaker to the general's mansion to propose marriage. "Your Highness, didn't you sleep last night? Why are you still here, so tired?" Xia Xing yawned and complained. He didn't sleep well last night, yet he still had to propose this morning. What a hassle. There's a little bit of trouble, it's not that big of a deal. Xia Jing stretched and added. Well, it seems like they're quite sincere. Yang Tong saw the gift and immediately turned to remind the Xia family father and son. In any case, be careful, don't be so easily subdued by them. Immediately after, all three of their gazes turned to Xia Wanyu. Seeing her bright expression, not looking like someone who had lost sleep last night, all three of them secretly agreed, cursing in their hearts, what a hateful person. No future. As soon as she finished speaking, the matchmaker walked in, her clear voice ringing out before she even appeared, "Aha! Congratulations to the old general and his wife. Congratulations to the entire Xia family." Xia Jing and Xia Heng immediately sat up straight, especially Xia Heng, who was carrying a sword with him, deliberately placing it in the most visible position. His cold face made people think of a murderous god. As soon as the matchmaker stepped through the door, she saw the solemn aura of the Xia family father and son, and the bright smile on her face immediately froze. She bowed shyly and quickly stepped aside. However, the majesty of Xia Jing and his son only lasted for a moment. When Su Xiaoran stepped through the threshold, they immediately stood up and saluted him. Xia Jing even had to invite Su Xiaoran to sit down. Su Xiaoran seemed very comfortable. Instead of sitting down right where he was invited, he chose a seat next to Xia Wandu himself. "Old General, Madam, and General Xia, are you going to stand here talking to me like this? It's like we're in court." Chu Turan smiled and said. Hearing that, Xia Jing and Xia Xing awkwardly scratched their heads, then obediently sat back in their seats. Chu Turan picked up the teacup on the table, took a sip, and continued, "Thank you, Old General, for not taking offense and allowing me to disturb you. Thank you for thoughtfully preparing good tea. That's for my younger sister." Xia Xing said bluntly, without any courtesy. "In that case, thank you, adieu, for thinking of me being thirsty and preparing tea." Chu Turan turned to look at Xia Wandu. Iran has worked hard." Xia Wandu smiled gently at him. "You too." Xia Xing wanted to say something but was speechless, then quickly changed the subject. "Doer, this is a man's matter, you should avoid me." "Alright, hurry up and go out." Before Xia Wanyu could reply, Chu Turan quickly interrupted. "Today's matter is related to Ayun, so she should stay." "Today's matter is." Speaking of this, Chu Turan turned to signal the matchmaker. Understanding, the matchmaker stepped into the middle of the room, and began to speak sweetly as if pouring honey. this prince is an outstanding talent, with extraordinary appearance and intelligence. The matchmaker had just begun to speak when she suddenly saw Xie Xing swish and draw his sword from its sheath. She was so frightened that her tongue became tied, swallowing the rest of her words back inside, her eyes staring at Chu Turan in panic, not knowing what to do. Chu Turan just smiled, stood up, bowed to Xie Jing and his wife, then said sincerely, "Today I came to the Xie residence to propose, hoping to marry Miss Xie Wanyu as my wife. I hope the old general and his wife will agree." Xie Jing and his wife were still preparing their refusals, when Xie Xing quickly interrupted, "I don't." Seeing that the situation was not good, Su Xiaoran quickly interrupted Xie Xing, "If that's the case, let's look at the gifts first." Very quickly, the ceremonial officer brought out the list of gifts. Xie Xing snorted, muttering to himself, "Giving anything is useless. I definitely won't let him easily steal my sister." Xie Jing also nodded uprightly, "My Xie family is not greedy for dowry." But in just a moment, both father and son were completely defeated. The ceremonial officer read aloud, "Dowry, military provisions, 100,000 taels. The treasured sword of the fishing ground. The handwritten Buddhist scriptures written by Master Jing Kong himself. Xie Jing, 3 dots. Xie Xing, 3 dots. Yang Tong, 3 dots. Such valuable gifts were brought out one after another, causing many emotions to well up in their hearts. To the point that when the ceremonial officer continued to read the gold, silver, jewels, silk, and brocade, they could no longer hear each word clearly. They even had some complaints in their minds, why can't he finish reading? When will it finally end? The dowry list is complete, I hope the old general will accept it. Finally, the ceremonial officer finished reading. Accept. Accept. Xie Jing, Yang Tong, and Xie Xing all responded in unison, unable to hide their bright smiles. Xie Jing thought, the prince voluntarily gave military provisions, and such a large amount, and he also gave us full permission to use it. It's truly wonderful. It can be used to support wounded soldiers, and can also be used to buy military uniforms and weapons. It's truly too useful. Xie Xing hugged the fish sword tightly, feeling happy in his heart. Can I hold this treasured fish sword in my hand? This is a rare sword, never seen before in the hands of the Xie family. It's really exciting. Yang Tong caressed the Buddhist scriptures, exclaiming, the Buddhist scriptures were handwritten by Master Jing Kong, which is a rare and hard-to-find item. I didn't expect my future son-in-law to give me a whole set. Su Xiaoran immediately ordered the gifts to be brought over for them to see with their own eyes. The atmosphere quickly changed. Xie Jing held the stack of silver notes, Xie Xing held the precious sword, and Yang Tong cherished the Buddhist scriptures. All three of them couldn't hide their satisfaction. Seeing that the opportunity had come, Su Xiaoran spoke up, Old General, Madam General, what about the marriage with Miss Wandu? Accepted. Accepted. The three of them happily replied. Then if we hold the wedding today, it won't be a problem, right? Xie Wandu smiled, not expecting her parents and brother to agree so easily. Huh? Get married right away? Xie Jing finally came to his senses. Cough, there's no need to rush the marriage. Both sides should get to know each other a little better, there's no need to rush. Xie Jing put away the stack of banknotes and replied seriously. That's right, we need to learn more about each other's personalities. Xie Xing said while hugging the fish sword, trying to keep a serious expression but unable to hide his smile. General is right, there are still a few precious swords in my mansion. When the time comes, I invite General to study them together. It can also be considered a way to understand more. Su Xiaoran interjected at the right time. Xie Xing immediately let go of his hand and nodded repeatedly, yes, yes, definitely, definitely. I will let the prince and my sister slowly get to know each other and cultivate their feelings. What are you cultivating? The atmosphere was harmonious when suddenly a shrill voice rang out. Xia Wan'er was wearing a light silk dress, being supported by a maidservant as she walked in, her face smiling gently like a willow in the wind. The atmosphere was so quiet that one could hear a pin drop. Xie Xing quickly hid the sword behind his back, but unexpectedly, Xia Waner saw it. "Brother, did you get some kind of treasured sword again?" Xia Waner asked, making Xia Xing so nervous that his hair stood on end. Seeing this, Xia Waner quickly walked to Xia Waner's side, leaned close and whispered, "Little sister, are you thinking about using a sword to kill bandits again? Do you need sister's help? This Qingyu long sword is so sharp, if it's just for cutting flesh, how effective is it? Don't forget the lesson of using violence to control violence that sister taught you." After hearing this, Xia Waner shivered, remembering the last time and immediately changing the topic. All right. The prince came to propose, then let's continue." After saying this, she wiped the corner of her eyes as if she was moved to tears, her voice choked. "Sister is about to get married. I'm really happy for you. But looking at these beautiful and precious gifts, thinking back, I feel sorry for myself. In this life, my parents will probably never receive such gifts because of me, hoo. Waner." Yang Tong heard her daughter say this, and was immediately startled, holding the Buddhist scripture in her hand, feeling like she was holding a hot potato, unable to give it or keep it. She hesitated for a long time before exclaiming, "Waner, these are all gifts the prince gave to the general's residence. The general's residence is also your home." After saying this, Yang Tong resolutely placed the Buddhist scripture in Xia Waner's hand. "Thank you, mother. You keep this Buddhist scripture, so that your daughter can ask you to help her have peace of mind in the future." Xia Waner immediately smiled, then turned to Xia Jing and Xia Xing with tears in her eyes. "Back then in the bandits' den, I suffered so much, you guys. Waner, everything is over. Rest assured, father will protect you for the rest of your life." "That's right, little sister, I'll even give you a treasured sword." Xia Jing and Xia Xing simultaneously handed out the gifts in their hands. Xia Waner stepped forward at this moment, quickly snatching the stack of banknotes and the fishwood sword from Xia Jing's hands. She looked at her father, and said sternly, "Father, how could you be so foolish? It's right that we love our little sister, but the military funds that the prince sponsored were originally from our Xia family for the military. Waner, do you want your father to be accused of embezzlement and lose the army's favor?" "Ah. Why do you say that?" Xia Waner tightly hugged the 10,000 taels of silver that Xia Jing had just stuffed back into her hand, looking extremely aggrieved. "And the fish sword too." Xia Waner quickly drew out her sword, her decisive action causing Xia Waner to tremble in shock. "Sister, aren't you afraid of these swords? What are you trying to do?" Xia Waner advanced while raising the sword in front of Xia Waner, swaying as she spoke. "Didn't you say that we need to fight poison with poison, fight violence with violence? Hold the sword and cut yourself, use this method to overcome your fear." "Ah." Xia Waner was so frightened that her face was drained of blood, and she almost collapsed. Seeing this, Xia Waner neatly put the sword back into its sheath, then threw it to Xia Xing. "Big brother, quickly hide the sword. You scared your little sister like this." Okay, I'll take it away right away." Xia Xing took the sword, his expression as if he was holding on to a treasure for fear of losing it, and he quickly put it away. "Waner, are you okay? It's mommy here, don't be afraid." Yang Tong stepped forward and hugged Xia Waner, gently comforting her. "Little sister, I can't keep this Buddhist scripture either." Xia Waner grabbed the Buddhist scripture again, and continued to say, "The Buddhist scriptures must be kept in the Buddhist hall. Or do you want to go to the Buddhist hall and kneel and recite the scriptures?" Yang Tong quickly interjected, "No need, mom can just kneel. The Buddhist hall in the mansion was originally built for mom to pray for you. Leaving the Buddhist scriptures in the Buddhist hall, offering them before the Buddha statue, wouldn't it be better than letting you keep them?" Xia Waner reasoned clearly. Xia Waner could only remain silent. Xia Waner's words were so clear that Xia Waner could not refute them. Yes, mother is so confused." Yang Tong seemed to have come to her senses, and immediately respectfully hugged the Buddhist scriptures to her bosom. "Mother, we need to fast and bathe, then bring the scriptures into the Buddhist hall, and then recite the scriptures for a day and a night to show our sincerity." Xia Waner did not miss the opportunity to remind her. "Yes, you are right, let's do it like that." Yang Tong immediately agreed, then led the Buddhist scriptures into the Buddhist hall, and began to fast and recite the scriptures. Only then would she not have to personally take care of Xia Wan'er, avoiding more trouble. Xia Wan'er saw all the treasures taken away, and she could not help but feel angry, but did not know what to do. She could only turn her gaze to the remaining jewelry and treasures, but Xia Wan'er immediately spoke up. These things belong to the general's residence. If you need anything, you can take it at will, but please let someone bring it to the residence's warehouse to record it. Immediately, the things were transferred to the warehouse. Xia Wan'er bit her lip, her heart filled with resentment. Transferring them to the residence's warehouse would require a record, not only inconvenient but also easy to leak information. Wouldn't it be more convenient to put them in a private warehouse? However, at this point, she didn't dare to make a big deal out of it, she could only suppress her anger. A thought flashed through her mind. Xia Wan'er suddenly pretended to be sad, her voice choked with sobs. Sister, you are so happy to have found such a good husband. As for me, I can only stay in the Xia residence forever. Everyone will grow old, parents can't be with you forever. Hoo-hoo. Wan'er, you still have parents, you still have big brother, mom will take care of you. Yang Tong hugged her to comfort her. But big brother will also get married. If sister-in-law doesn't like it, won't it be difficult for you and sister-in-law? Besides, how can the relationship between sister-in-law and brother-in-law be as close as real sisters? Sis, I really can't bear to leave you, I just hope we can be together forever. Wan'er. Yang Tong felt heartbroken when she heard that, tears welling up in her eyes. Why am I so miserable?